it up, swashbucklers! You're listening to Under the Crossbones, episode number 140. My name's Phil Johnson. I'm your host for the show today, each and every week. So here we are. Glad to be here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for telling your friends. Thank you for visiting sponsors, for all that joining, playing with us online, all that cool stuff that you do that helps me keep the old boat afloat. I appreciate it very, very much. Here we are, episode number 140. Fun fact about the number 140. I like this one. In the Sherlock Holmes stories, there are mentions of monographs or specialized writings that Holmes made about various aspects of his job. And in one of them, titled Analysis of Tobacco Ashes, there are 140 varieties of ashes from different varieties of pipe, cigar, and cigarette tobacco listed. I have no idea if that's actually a true fact. It's true in the Sherlock Holmes stories. 140 types of different ashes that he figured out. I would love to know if that's actually like a true thing. If any of you tobacco enthusiasts out there know if that's actually a real thing, let me know. That'd be fun to find out. So welcome to the show. We got a great one for you today. If you're new to the show, thank you for tuning in. There's new people that come in every week, and I always appreciate that. If you're wondering what the heck we're doing here, here's what the show is about. I like creative, cool people in the pirate community that should be exposed to a larger audience. And here, I'll tell you, here's the way that I describe the show to myself. I don't think I would ever actually put this in print anywhere, but this is how I think about it in my brain. Okay, you ready? We take you on a behind the eye patch look at the people in the pirate community and the cool things that they're doing. That's so cheesy! Oh my God, behind the eye patch? Why? Why would I do that? But that is how I think about it in my head. And so that's what we do here. We find people who are doing cool things around the pirate mythos, the pirate iconography, all that kind of stuff. And we talk to them and we find out what they're doing and how they got there, and it's a fun show. So if you're new to the show, that's what we're doing here. Welcome, and I hope you hang in there with us for lots of stuff. So we are talking to some super cool creative people today, Daniel Redman and Steve Bush of the Ahoy There Podcast. Yeah, there's not a lot of pirate podcasts out there. There's this show, there's the Pirate History Podcast, there's History of Pirates Podcast, and there's the Ahoy There Podcast. And I think there's a Pirates of the Caribbean podcast out there as well, and of Scoundrels Inn, which is pirate music. So there's a few of us out there, but there's not a lot in the podcast space for pirate fans. So we're here for you. But Dan Redman and Steve Bush, they do the Ahoy There Podcast, which is an improvised pirate story podcast. It's very funny. And if you've ever experienced an improv show, you know that they can be one of two things. They can be mind-blowingly funny, so much fun, like you've never experienced that kind of fun before, or one of the most terrible things you've ever seen in your life. And I've seen both. I've seen a lot of improv over the years. Improv, most of the time, if the players are good, is a fascinating, fantastic art form that is so much fun to witness. And if you've seen terrible improv, then that may turn you off from improv forever. But don't let that. Go find some better players if you've seen terrible improv. But these guys are good. Dan Redman and Steve Bush of the Ahoy There Podcast. They're improvising a pirate story on their podcast every week, and it's much, much fun. So go to ahoytherepodcast.com. That's where you can check out their show. We had Mother's Day over the weekend. We're going to talk to Dan and Steve here in a second. But did you do Mother's Day? Did you call your mom? I see my mom like at least 5 days a week because I live 6 blocks from her, and my teaching studio is actually over at her place, and so I see my mom all the time. But we did do dinner. I had some Italian food, me and my folks and my friend Lindy, who is also a mother. And we went out and we did the Mom's Day dinner thing. And then my favorite part of Mother's Day is then turning to my girlfriend and saying, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're not a mother." Because that would make me a father. And there's just no need for any of that. So I think we should have a separate day that's entitled like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that pregnancy scare wasn't a real thing" day. That could be a day. I think that should be a holiday. There should be a day for women who don't get pregnant too, I think. Anyway, so we had a good time on Mother's Day. And this week is also my mom's birthday. So she got those. So we make sure to not do the, your birthday around Christmas type of thing. She gets 2 dinners and 2 presents so that we play fair with mom. And then this week is also my anniversary with my girlfriend. And you're never going to believe. Take a guess. How many years do you think we've been together? Just take a guess. Take a guess. No, I'll wait. Did you take a guess? You're wrong. Nope. 25 years this year. 25 years we've been together. Talk about your time flying. Not bad for a blind date. Yeah, we met on a blind date. A friend of ours set us up. My buddy Rob told me he had a Japanese friend that I would love. And as soon as I saw her, I was like, dude, she's not Japanese. She's Chinese. And he couldn't tell the difference. But I can. So, or at least I can after 25 years. So that's how it works. So anyway, that's a busy week for that. So I'm not doing a ton of gigs this week because all that's going on. But do have shows coming up. This Saturday, the 19th, I'm doing a private show. Hey, if you're having an event and you need a cool comedian, I do private events. You can get in touch with me about that. And then it's off to Michigan on the 24th. I'll be at the Spring Lake Holiday Inn in Spring Lake, Michigan. On the 26th of May, Coral Gables at Saugatuck, Michigan. 27th at Woody's Press Box in Wyoming, Michigan. The May 29th, I'll be at Zany's in Rosemont, Illinois. God, I love that club. And May 31st, I will be at the Quadden Casino, way up in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Way up. It'll be almost Canada. And so those are all coming up. And lots of other stuff. I got Central California, far North California, Oregon, Washington, Tennessee. Some actual Canadian dates coming up this year. You can get all that. Go to underthecrossbones.com. Click on the tour dates button. That'll show you all the variety of places that I'm coming to tell jokes and songs near you. Tell jokes and songs. Tell jokes and sing songs. That's the way that sentence should actually be structured by a thinking human being. And of course, Pirate Fests are coming up, right? The NorCal Fest, June 16 and 17, here up in Vallejo, California. I'm going to do my darndest to make an appearance up there. I do have a ton of gigs that weekend, but I'm going to try and stop in there for a little while. So if you see me, say hey. And the Long Beach Pirate Invasion, June 30th, July 1st. I will definitely be there. I will be doing things on stage there with a microphone in front of my face. And that's going to be so much fun. So if you see me at the NorCal Fest or the Long Beach Fest, come by, say hi, and that's always fun. We're sponsored today by TeePublic, and TeePublic contracts with independent t-shirt artists, and they make really super cool t-shirts for you. And I've curated a collection of over 100 awesome pirate t-shirts that I know you're going to love. Funny ones, sexy ones, scary ones. They're all there. And it's really cool. So go to underthecrossbones.com/shirt. Pick yourself up a really cool pirate shirt. Pick yourself up some gifts. Christmas is coming in like 7 or 8 months. It's coming because why? It's always coming. It's always coming. So you can always buy some gifts. Maybe you have an anniversary. I'm not going to buy my girlfriend a pirate shirt for her anniversary. Oh, she'd kill me. But maybe you need a gift for somebody, a birthday, an anniversary, Christmas, Hanukkah. I don't know. You got to get 8 presents for Hanukkah. Go buy yourself a pirate t-shirt. Do something nice for yourself. Go to underthecrossbones.com/shirt. That's underthecrossbones.com/shirt. Check out all the cool pirate shirts I picked out for you. And of course, you can get all the show notes for this episode at underthecrossbones.com/140. And if you are enjoying the show, you want to help support us a little bit, go to underthecrossbones.com/support. You can drop a little donation in the PayPal box there. Very quick and easy. Hit the Amazon banner. Click there. Buy yourself something. And Amazon kicks me back a few shekels. If you want to be a sponsor of the show, that's cheap and easy too. I'll get you all the info. Just hit that webpage, underthecrossbones.com/support. All right, let's do this. Are you ready? We're going to talk comedy. We're going to talk improv. We're going to talk pirates. This is Daniel Redman and Steve Bush from the Ahoy There Podcast. Check it out. You guys are both involved with the Ahoy There Podcast, which is an improvised comedy podcast about pirates. Can you give us the 10-cent tour of what the show is about?
Yeah, sure. I can start. So what we had in mind for this podcast was to be a running narrative falling to, we're going to put air quotes around the word pirate.
Okay.
We kind of fashioned our pirate personas sort of around like everyday pirates, not the captains that you see glamorized in TV and in what you would read, but more like just the guys on the ship. Yeah, just a couple of guys on the ship. We maybe don't necessarily belong here. We have odd jobs, just like the average folk, the mediocre pirate.
So there's, in the movie The Pirates of the Caribbean, obviously it's the story of Jack Sparrow and all the other captains, but there are those two pirates that get a lot of screen time. The one with the eye who keeps falling out, and the other kind of short stocking with the longer hair.
Yep.
And we were thinking, we know the story of Jack Sparrow. We know all their stories, but what about those two guys? Like, what if there was a story that followed those two guys who just find themselves in random bits of trouble, and they always seem to be in the middle of these things that are much bigger than who they are?
Right. And so you're the blue collar pirates, not the white collar pirates.
Yeah.
And so where did the idea for the show come from?
Well, I'd say I'd have to take you all the way back to second grade to give you my first inspiration for becoming a pirate.
We have time.
I had this. Yeah, sure. So I had this project. And I still have this journal saved. So in second grade, I had to keep a journal. One of the assignments was, okay, in today's journal, you have to draw a picture of what you're going to look like in 20 years.
Okay.
So some of the things I put and drew myself as is I had a really nice polo shirt. I had black shoes and gray slacks. I was holding a soccer ball, and I had an eye patch. And I brought home my project, and my mom was devastated. Like, are you prophesizing that you're going to have a terrible eye injury? Like, and my answer was no. I think I might be a pirate. I think that at some point in my life, I'm going to turn to piracy.
That's hilarious.
So that was probably my first influence. I'd say later, and Steve will add on this too, but Steve and I together, when we improvise on stage, we always just find ourselves in pirate scenes. We don't know how or why or when it's going to happen. We just end up on stage together and we become pirates. And it just became like a natural progression for us to either save a show or punch up a show by being pirates. All right, it's pirate time, Steve, and we would do it.
The pirates can save any show. Yeah, Steve, tell me about your pirate thing.
So most of my pirate experience came along once I met Dana a couple of years back. But in terms of the podcast, we had both been talking a lot about some other improv podcasts that we follow. And there's one about, a mission in outer space. There's one about a man that goes into a fantasy land called Hello from the Magic Tavern, which is one of my favorite ones that I'm listening to right now. And we were thinking, we want to do something like this. We enjoy improvising together, and we kind of want to put ourselves out there a little bit more. What would be a niche that we could find? And we threw around a couple other ideas, but we realized, we've got the pirate thing right in front of us. Why don't we just try and say, you're two random pirates. If we had a show that followed what happened to these two random pirates, all the unfortunate mistrials of them, how would that play out?
Nice. Very cool. So now tell me about your improv backgrounds a little bit, because I'm a stand-up. I do plenty of that, but improv has always been a daunting task. The few times I've done it, I was like, well, I really didn't like that experience. That's very difficult to do. So tell me about your backgrounds there.
Go ahead, Steve.
Sure. So I've been doing improv now for about 5 years.
Okay.
I picked it up when I lived on the East Coast, and then when I moved to the West Coast, I didn't know anybody. So I figured one of the first things I should do is just sign up for an improv class. And in one of the first classes I signed up for, Dan was actually in that same class.
Okay.
And we got to talking afterward, and we found out that we ended up living 2 blocks away from each other. So we started carpooling, and after that, we got closer and started doing more shows together. And as we kind of progressed through the scene down here, we just kind of developed a nice little tandem that we liked working with together.
Nice. Now, what was your impetus for moving to the West Coast? Was it show business stuff?
No, it was completely unrelated. I had an opportunity in my life where I said, hey, I have a chance to live anywhere I want to. Why not try something completely new? I didn't want to be 50, 60 years old, settled in, and realize that I lived in the same 5 square miles for my entire life. So it was just kind of let me try it out there. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it's worth a shot.
See, Steve has piracy built into his moving strategy. Even at his core, he's a pirate.
Nomadic.
Nice. I like that. I've lived in the same area my whole life, but part of why I got into comedy and music in general was so I could travel and get out of my 5 square miles. I like my 5 square miles, but I don't want to be here all the time. So I totally get that sentiment.
Just to kind of add on,
absolutely.
Where my inspiration to start improv and tackle that one as well.
Yeah.
It was a completely different reason. I don't know what your reason was initially, Steve, for starting improv, but I actually booked classes literally in the middle of the night, rolling around in bed at midnight, 1 a.m., feeling sort of unfulfilled. Like I had known since probably 91, 92 that I wanted some kind of comedy life and not knowing how to find it. And my parents had no idea what to do with me as a child. And I just booked classes. What kind of comedy classes can I take in San Diego? And I just booked it. And I just fell in love with improv right away because it just tickled that part of my brain that needed stimulation.
Yes, nice. That's very cool. And so, how long have you been doing it now?
I'm a year shorter than. Yeah, I'm 4 years. 4 years into my career.
You've both been doing live shows, live improv shows, and things like that. What were you looking for? An online project of some sort to do around the improv thing, or was it just based on hearing those other improv podcasts that you got the idea to do something like that?
It was a little bit of both. We had always, whenever we got together and talked about improv, talked about ideas that we could do. Back when we were living closer together, we would meet up routinely and just go to a bar and just spit out names and words and random things and try to figure out how we can make a game out of that. So we were always kind of just shooting from the hip, trying to figure out what new things we could do. As we, moved a little bit further apart, we would not be able to meet as frequently, but when we met for shows and practices, we would still keep talking about what things we could do, but we wanted to try to do it in a way that we had a little more creative freedom. Obviously, when you get to improv, it's open-ended. You're going to do whatever you're going to do. But we thought that we had some ideas where we can really just kind of make it entirely our own.
Yeah, I like that. That's the one thing I always am jealous of improv guys is it's I know there's tons of pre-show preparation and things like that, but the writing process itself, where you go out there and you do it and it's funny, and meanwhile I'm sitting here with my laptop laboring over the exact wording for the jokes that I need, and then I take them on stage and they bomb, and I have to rewrite them 5,000 times. So I've always been jealous about that, about improv guys. Have either of you done any like straight stand-up stuff?
No, not. I mean, Steve? Haven't you done an open mic? Didn't you say you did an open mic at some point?
No. I was thinking about it for a little bit, but I just never got around to doing it. We there's some games that we play at improv where we can kind of get into that mode. The one game is called the Armando, and it's a 20 to 30 minute set where we start off with a 2 to 3 minute monologue. And so when we're telling that monologue, we can work in kind of a funny story, which is sort of like a stand-up act. We're still making it up on the spot, but it's definitely more of us standing up there and just kind of telling a story to the audience as opposed to acting out a scene. It's probably about as close as we get, but we have a lot of fun doing that too.
I absolutely love storytelling, just amongst buddies and people, probably more people than I should storytell in front of, to be totally honest. But I cherish and treasure the stories that I have, usually wild college stories, debauchery, things that I really shouldn't talk about, but I do anyways, because I love the impact of telling an amazing story and how people react to them. And
yeah,
that's something that I think I'll always have. And maybe at some point I might try doing that on stage, but I would say that's the closest I get today to doing real stand-up.
And the storytelling thing is sort of a hot thing right now, which I don't completely understand it. I mean, I enjoy it. I listen to The Moth and things like that, and they're always entertaining. But what I am curious about with the storytelling stuff is that I don't know how it fits into the entertainment business. It really just strikes me as we're just going to tell these stories because we like to tell stories. And for somebody who's been entrenched in the entertainment business for as long as I have, you just go, yeah, but why? Yeah. Why are you telling those stories?
Totally agree.
But I really do enjoy it. Yeah. But it's an interesting tangent.
It's funny, on the way to the theater before a show, I almost always have The Moth, and I'm listening to The Moth on my way because I find so much inspiration in just listening to other mundane, sometimes stories of people, and kind of getting like character inspirations from people. How someone responds to certain stimulus, or when they're exposed to like high stakes, how they react. I think all that stuff is improviser food.
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be funny to be inspirational.
Right.
Literally anything. You realize one day that you click your mouse button weird, and you realize that maybe your finger is bent in a different way. That can be a whole character in and of itself. You can just expand on that little detail and just add layers and layers and layers on it throughout the episodes.
Certainly.
And even just little mistakes that you make. We had an episode where we were talking about trying to get ready to fight someone, and instead of saying I'm armed to the hilt, I said I'm armed to the kilt. And that was recorded, and all of a sudden my pirate now wears a kilt. And it comes up from time to time, and it makes no sense, but we threw it out there, and that's part of my story now.
That's fantastic. So how does the skill change, or does it change going from a stage format into a strictly audio format? Besides the obvious, you can't use physical gestures and things like that to get the laughs. How does the skill change?
It's definitely a different challenge. When we're doing scene work, we're not always trying to tell a story. Sometimes we're trying to find a game. And so much of improv, so much of being on stage and being live is all about your emotions and your physicality.
Sure.
Really, once you remove that element, you're relying a lot more on your voice. And it's almost kind of scary because sometimes you can have those pregnant pauses on stage where two people are just looking at each other and they're making a face, whether it's a sexual tension or an angry tension. But on a recording where it's all audio, if there's a gap of silence, you don't really contextualize what that's about. You don't know if it's anger, if it's funny, if it's
sure.
Maybe they just turned off the mics and didn't know what was going on. So really filling those spaces with your voice, but also learning to not try to just fill the silence. Sometimes the silence can still be used, but you just have to use it differently.
And I wouldn't say we've totally, mastered this in any way. You can definitely hear an evolution from, episode 1 to episode 10. In how Steve and I sort of interact with each other, the individual games that we've adopted as our characters, and even our candor and the way that we, relay information back and forth has completely evolved in just 10 episodes. So it's definitely something that's growing. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I always found pretty hard is, we're telling a narrative. We're not doing a sit down story, and it's kind of like a one shot type of narrative. We don't do cuts. We don't advance in time. You're seeing a 20 to 30 minute snippet of these two people's lives. And so, if you're standing on one side of the island and you have to go to the other side of the island to pick up a crate of rum, what do you do while you're walking?
Okay.
We don't do a jump cut to, hey, we're on the other side. We're like, all right, well, we're going to walk now. And just filling that gap and trying to communicate what we're doing physically through words without narrating everything was something that took a little while to get used to.
Right. That's an interesting challenge. Yeah. To do it, to just keep it real time and have to not have dead air, because life has a lot of dead air and you can't have that.
Oh, yeah.
I want that on a t-shirt.
Life has a lot of dead air. It's not a bad idea. So how much of the stuff that you actually say into a microphone when you're recording makes it into the show? Are you using all of it? Are you editing? Because I know for me, I write a lot of stuff that gets thrown away before I get to the nugget of the joke or the song or whatever it is I'm working on. So are you throwing stuff out that's extra?
We're probably, if you remove the dead air and the gaps, we're probably keeping about 90 to 95% of it. Wow. We really try to just do everything clean cut and stay as true to a live show as we can. Mm-hmm. And on the practical side of things, we're both pretty busy people, so we don't have time to dedicate a lot of editing hours to kind of trimming it up.
I will say that in one episode, a particular episode, I was actually explaining to Steve how my character became a latrinesman, which I talk about at long length in the show. And it was actually that parakeets flew into my window, began biting my fingers, and somehow imbued me with the ability to build toilets. And when I explained it to Steve live in scene, we were laughing for probably a good 4.5 minutes straight. So in that particular episode, we probably went from 38 minutes down to just mid-20s in the amount that we kept.
Okay.
Yeah. It just depends on what's going on.
Yeah, there were a couple false restarts in that one.
Yeah.
It's no, I'm good now. Crack up laughing. No, I'm good now.
In this last one, Steve, I think I was singing a sea shanty about male genitalia. And we had, I tried 4 times to restart the song and re-sing it, and it just was not going. Couldn't happen.
But that sounds like something that could be worked on for a hit single later on.
Yeah, that's right. Thinking about just releasing all of the hits, just the sea shanties from the episodes.
Right.
Yeah, there's something there.
When you are digging into it, how do you stay away? Because you're working very stream of consciousness for the most part. How do you stay away from a hard left turn, either character or plot wise, that might not make sense? Or do you just go with those hard left turns and try and work it in?
I think that if you were to take and really look at our episodes one after another, pick out fine details, I think, unfortunately, you'd find a lot of plot holes.
Okay.
or things that, like, loose ends that we don't necessarily tie up in a pretty bow.
Sure.
And I think those are just going to happen. And we want our audience to just kind of take everything in, like, at a 30,000 foot level, I'd say, at a certain point. And listen to it for the meat. And if you dig into some of the details, we're not going to tie everything up. It's just not, it just can't happen.
Yeah, continuity is a big challenge. Even in a 5-minute scene that you do on stage in front of people, it's sometimes difficult to try to pay attention to everything that's going on. Think of where you're going to go next. Try to understand where your partner's going next. And then remember something that you talked about 3 minutes ago. So honestly, that's probably one of the things I'm most nervous about, getting into episode 10, 11, 12, making sure that we're trying not to contradict something from the first couple episodes. And it's a matter of, on some level, it's a matter of owning it. If you make a hard left, then you just go with it. We've had the kilt thing is probably a good example. I made a mistake. Dan picked up on it. And I actually didn't even realize I had misspoken until 2 or 3 episodes later when I was re-listening to it on the way over to his house to record. And then we just said, we'll just own it. And the more that you kind of own it, the more it just becomes part of the story. So you don't want to panic. You own it.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of a difference between contradicting something that happened previously versus just taking a hard left turn that might sound out of plot or out of character, and then it never wraps up in a tidy bow, which I love when that kind of stuff happens, because people around me go, are they ever going to tie that up, plot line? And who cares? It's there. It's just going to keep being there. That kind of stuff drives my girlfriend insane, and I love it, mostly because it drives her insane. But I can see where, you wouldn't want to contradict, but just sort of going off the rails a little bit would be kind of fun, even if you don't do anything with it.
There's some things that we do.
Yeah, and in improv.
Sorry, there's some things that we do play with as well, and we've had some mild fourth wall breaks, I'd say, in our episodes thus far. Mm-hmm. One particular episode, I stumbled across a word in common language that Steve would not say.
Okay.
And I didn't discover until we were in the scene that this was a word Steve wanted to lay off. If you haven't gathered already, I'm like more of the foul-mouthed character, and Steve is a little bit more like straight-laced. So I kept throwing this word in Steve's face, and you can actually hear his disdain for me using that word. And I kept playing with it and kept pushing it on him. And I love it. It's one of my favorite portions of the episode that we did. Just because I love hearing Steve squirm. That's one of the few times where we definitely kind of break character a little, or push the envelope of the character just to, bag a joke.
But even in that example, it depends on how you play it. So in improv, there's denial, and you can say no to stuff. The improv motto is always yes and.
Sure.
But you can say no to stuff as long as that's what the character would do.
Okay.
And so in that scene, Dan's character was pushing mine, and I was getting pushed, but I was also irritated. And the character in that moment would push back. Nope, I'm not playing your game. Nope, I'm not playing your game. That's a completely different situation than if in an episode next week, one of our characters would suddenly turn around and say, aha, I've been a ninja this whole time.
Uh-huh.
That completely destroys the reality that you set up.
Sure. And does anything like that accidentally ever come up, where something falls out of your face that kind of destroys the character?
Every once in a while, we try to be conscious of it. We had an episode where we inadvertently referenced air conditioning, which clearly wouldn't exist. And so we just have to talk our way around it. Yeah, the air is conditioned to, it's a cave or something. It's conditioned to this temperature and this humidity naturally. And just work it around as if it's a totally natural thing for people to know that that's what we meant by air conditioning.
Nice. And so do you go in with any sort of predetermined place where you want those characters to go? You go, hey, what would be cool is if we took them to this plot line and did that, or is it just going in completely cold every time?
It's not completely cold. We do a very rough outline.
Okay.
We'll start every episode flipping a coin to see who opens the episode.
Nice.
We'll talk about briefly what happened in the last episode, major beats, like, our characters ended up getting off the island and they resolved to get to this destination. And then for the next episode, we'll maybe hit 2 or 3 points of what we want to try to cover. And then we'll just kind of weave those 2 or 3 points together. And honestly, half the time we start in the first 30 seconds and then completely throw it out. So we try to have a rough idea, but we just go with it as it comes along.
In our most recent episodes as well, our numbers 10, 11, we accidentally went full Rick and Morty too, which I think is an amazing show, and it just happened organically. And I think our thought is that if you structure too much of it, you don't give those opportunities to occur organically.
Sure.
But what we essentially, turned into with those episodes is we knew that we were in one realm of Hades.
Okay.
To start the episode, but we didn't realize it was Steve's character in his personal hell. We escaped it, and we ended up in my personal hell in the second episode. But it was something that was completely foreign to what our original structure was.
So if somebody new is coming into the show, do you think they need to start from episode 1 to follow everything that's going on, or can they kind of jump in from where you are?
I think they should start with 1 through 9, just to get their palate wet. No, but really, I think you really kind of do need to start from the beginning. It is sort of a serial podcast where the story is running. We reveal a lot of character details early on and sort of scene build, world build, character build early, so that we don't have to visit those things as often down the road. So the first one is really the starting point, and you'll notice a dramatic change in the way our characters react, how our characters develops, episode over episode. So to, truly kind of grasp that entire evolution, you kind of got to be at the beginning.
Yeah, and part of the story is that when we first meet, we're complete strangers. So as the characters evolve, so is their relationship. So who they are individually and together evolves over the course of time. There are some episodes where you could jump in and it's a little more friendly to kind of get up to speed. Sometimes we'll run into a third or fourth character who we need to kind of present who we are. We introduce ourselves to the character, which is kind of like a little wink and a nod to people who may want to refresh on who we are.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. What did it look like when you put the show out originally? Where did you go to tell people about it? Was it to the improv community online? Was it to comedy people, pirate people? Where did you go to get
all the above? So we have a really nice community in San Diego, improv community in San Diego, that's been really supportive of us, that we're super thankful for. Our primary strategy in growing the user base has been sourced to Instagram. So if you really want to see our most active social media location, it would be Instagram. Everything else kind of tails off of that. But we chase down people that are seeking adventure. So adventure posters, people in the sailing community are important to us. We like emo goth girls. They seem to really gravitate towards us in a lot of ways. And people in the
I sent Dan a couple of weird texts about those. We got a couple of followers, and I looked and I'm like, who are you marketing to?
We talk about some pretty dark stuff, Phil.
That's great.
I mean, you got to serve that community the same as the highbrow folks.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, who doesn't like a good emo girl? That's funny. So, I mean, in what form? Instagram is sort of a weird one for audio because you can only put a 1-minute clip or whatever. So what kind of things are you doing there to attract people? Are you doing with hashtags or follow for follow or that type of thing?
A lot of one-liners is probably the biggest thing.
Oh, okay.
Our characters tend to have... We tend to be a little bit punchy in our improv, and there's a lot of quotes from Dan's characters and my characters. So out of context, they are unique enough, I think, to raise an eyebrow, and hopefully that draws people in.
I had someone actually respond and say, Dan, I haven't listened to a single second of your podcast, but I love your Instagram feed. They just read our quotes and love our quotes. So I think, in that we're probably doing something right. I don't know what it is yet, but we're appealing to people with just the dramatic landscapes with our disgusting foul-mouthed quotes on them.
Yeah, it's like that old Saturday Night Live bit where you'd have the one dude with the quotes and they'd put over like a beach.
Jack Handy.
Yeah, the Jack Handy quotes. It's kind of like that.
Oh yeah,
it's like twisted Jack Handy quotes.
Nice. What is what's your Instagram so I can put it in the show notes?
It's at Ahoy There Podcast.
Oh, okay. Good branding.
Very
cohesive.
literal.
Cohesive. I like it. I know my social media handles are all over the place because I collected them a little bit at a time over the years, and they're a mess. But yeah, that's cool. That's great. And does the show come out weekly or monthly? Where's your schedule?
We're pushing on an every Tuesday schedule right now.
Oh, great.
So we come out 5:00 Eastern time every Tuesday.
Nice.
And we are very excited to get those posts up there by about 4:00 Eastern time every Tuesday.
Nice. Well, that's good. So everybody out there listening, they can go grab your show, and then a couple hours later, they can go grab my show because I come out on Tuesdays as well.
What is it about Tuesdays? Is Tuesday like a hot day to release? Is there some behavior there?
Yeah, I don't know. You know what it is when I first started the show, when I first started my last show that I was doing, I had read somewhere that Tuesday was a good release day. And so I just keep running with that. And it kind of makes sense, I guess, because they're at work. They're starting to get bored of the week already. It seems like a time when they'd want to go find something else to do. But yeah, I had read somewhere that Tuesday was a good release day, and it's so far it's worked out pretty well. So other than that, I don't know. And so Ahoy There Podcast.com is the main website, right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. And I'll make sure that all gets in the show notes and all that kind of stuff. And that's great. This has been fun, guys. I'm glad we got a chance to do this. I hope we can bring you some new listeners and vice versa.
Yeah, of course. We appreciate the time, Phil. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much, Phil.
You bet. Is there anything I forgot to ask you about that you want everybody to know?
One thing that I would like to say before people jump into our podcast is that it is not safe for work.
Oh, yeah.
So there is some choice language. We spend absolutely only a few minutes of non-grotesque language in the first episode before jumping right into it. So I want to set that expectation before you get into it. It's not for kids, for sure.
Nice. Yes, good. If you have tender ears, not for them. Well, guys, this has been fun. I am so glad we got to do it, and I hope we can talk again soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil.
There it is, friends. That is my interview with Daniel Redman and Steve Bush from the Ahoy There Podcast. And, of course, you can find their show at ahoytherepodcast.com. Or, I'll bet, any place where you can get podcasts. Maybe even the same place that you got this one at. That's the magic right there. I don't know, whatever you're using, Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Podcast Addict or Overcast or any of the variety of apps, Google Play. I don't think anybody uses Google Play, not for podcasts anyway, because they're hard to find on there. But wherever you get your podcasts, you can get Ahoy There Podcast as well as Under the Crossbones for sure. So we're going to hear a clip from the Ahoy There Podcast because they were nice enough to send me one. And so let's dig into that. All right, this is a clip from the real thing, the Ahoy There Podcast.
You floating in the water. Who goes there? You over there. Who goes there?
You talking to me?
Yes, I'm talking to you.
I am Captain Petey Budd. Captain Petey Budd.
You were in the river of the damned.
No, I was just standing here by the banks.
There is a strict no swimming policy in the river of the damned.
I did no such thing, mysterious voice. I was just standing here. You may be looking for my friend.
I be not. This is Mephistopheles. And I am looking for you to join the stolen souls that travel in the river and a little bit of peanut butter.
What, you want me to become one of the stolen souls?
Yes!
Wouldn't consenting to that mean that my soul would not be stolen?
I'm doing the stealing. That's kind of the point.
But you're asking for my soul first.
I'm asking nicely because I'm a nice guy.
But then it's not stolen.
If you give it to me, then it's not stolen. That's technically correct.
So you want me to say no and then you're going to take it anyway?
That's up to you to decide.
Well, then I'll say yes. You can have my soul.
God damn it. Oh, man, it usually works. It honestly, I've been doing this for thousands of years, and it usually works.
Look, why don't you just go find some other soul? I'm not even in the water. I'm just standing by the banks. I might have dipped my toe in for a little bit. But look, there's a guy and a merwoman swimming over there. Go after them.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I really wanted your soul. It was one I was missing in my collection, but, I'm going to be cool today, and I'm going to show you how to get out of here. You see there's a fork in the river ahead. If you go right, it just takes you right to the beginning and you can get off. This is a long ride. It's a hell long ride. So just go to the right. I mean, you'll be fine.
That is suspiciously helpful information.
Yeah, go to the right. I mean, what do you have to lose, right? Just go to the right.
Are you sure I shouldn't just go to the left?
Oh, you foiled me again. Oh, boy, I'm really not good at this part of the job.
I'm sorry, what is it that you do here again?
I try and trick people into granting me their souls. I am a soul collector.
I'd love to give you tips, but I don't have time for this. I need to go after my friend.
No, please, at least give me a tip. I need at least some fair coaching, because this is not an easy job, and I'm not doing so well at it.
All right. First tip, maybe lose the voice acting a little bit. Tone it down. If your voice is a little extreme, maybe if you came across a little friendlier, people would think that you were more trusting.
Oh, cheers, mate. It's a bit better?
No, oh, God, you sound like a surfer douche that I know.
Oh,
All right, no, fine.
you suckered me into a trap. Here I've revealed my vulnerabilities to you, and you turn it back on me.
Hey, what are you doing bothering Petey? My gosh. I thought we got rid of you forever ago.
Oh, it's here.
You're such a loser.
Yeah, I'm behind in my quota.
Obviously. When's the last time you actually stole a soul, loser?
Oh, come on, I gotta hit my numbers.
Fun, right? Yes. Good improv is fun. So again, you can check out their whole show at ahoytherepodcast.com. And how did you like the show today? Did you learn something new? Did you hear something that you liked? Did you hear something you didn't like? Come join us over on Facebook, facebook.com/underthecrossbones. Leave me a little note there, and tell me what you liked, didn't like, learned. Tell your friends what you learned. That's always a nice thing to do too. But just come join in the fun, shall we? Yeah. And if you're a Twitter person, I'm kind of a Twitter person, go to twitter.com/undercrossbones and you can hit me there as well. Side note, I guess, kind of a side note. Last week, if you listened to last week's show with Dave Burgess from Teach Like a Pirate, then you know that we are giving away two signed copies of Dave Burgess's book, Teach Like a Pirate. And if you haven't entered that yet, you might want to go do that. Go to underthecrossbones.com/139. That is the show notes for the Dave Burgess episode at 139. And you can enter right there. There's a little entry form right at the bottom of the show notes to enter to win a signed copy of Teach Like a Pirate from Dave Burgess. We're going to give away 2 of those, and there's you have one more week to enter, so make sure you jump on that. And, of course, we're sponsored today by Pirate Radio of the Treasure Coast, WKKC-DB, playing the best music of today's hits and yesterday's classics, and Pirate Radio Talk, playing the best pirate shows, including Under the Crossbones, 24/7, all commercial free. Go to pirateradiofthetreasurecoast.com for the music station, or Pirate Radio TC for the talk station. Don't forget to download their apps. That is the Pirate Radio WKKC-DB app for the music station, and Pirate Radio Talk is the one for the talk station, brought to you by iTreasure Radio, the very best digital media from independently owned stations at iTreasureRadio.com. Love those guys. In fact, we're going to have Dave on from Pirate Radio, the Treasure Coast, very, very soon. That's coming up. We just had to reschedule because, oh my God, I accidentally scheduled the interview with him for the same day as my anniversary, which was a bad move. Bad move on my part, possibly harmful to my health. We don't want that. We don't want that at all. So that is our show for today, friends. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed listening to Dan Redman and Steve Bush from the Ahoy There Podcast. Again, you can find their show at ahoytherepodcast.com. We have got mucho cool stuff coming up on the show. Next week, we're going to hear from Rich Manick, all the way from New Zealand, with Captain Festus McBoyle's Traveling Variety Show. By next week, when I play the interview, I'm going to be able to say that better. I'm going to practice this week. After that, Robin Flanagan from Crimson Pirates, Chris Liedenfrost of The Greatest Pirate Story Never Told, Faith Pierce from Finding Your Neverland. That's a camping thing. Oh my gosh. So much cool stuff coming up, and I hope you guys stay tuned in. Again, you can get all the show notes for this episode at underthecrossbones.com/140. Come play with us on Facebook. Come play with us on Twitter. Tell your friends, and I will see you next week.